Hi there, thanks for checking out our channel. This is one of the first times you've ever been on our channel. We appreciate you finding us, but this is going to be kind of a show and tell about this unit, and let's talk about some of the features and what it can do as a unit. This is a Gallagher M1800i. This is an 18 storage joule unit. This is one of their, they don't make this version anymore, they make it M1800i. It's a plug-in or battery version, but this one is specifically a plug-in model. It's over here in the States, it's 110, 120 volt. We're up in Canada as well. What's nice about all the I series, what they call the all the I series units that are out there come with this little Gallagher, this digital controller. And this piece, I believe, is waterproof up to 3 feet of water. So you keep the Energizer plugged in and installed indoors, and it comes with this long cable. It plugs in the back there. It comes with this long cable that plugs into the back of the unit. And you can mount this outside the building or next to the unit or on the door, you know, the building that you're going in, and just run your cable through a little hole in the wall or whatever. But it tells you your amperage, your voltage. It has a row of lights on here that flash, and it tells you basically what's going on with the fence, what's going on with the unit, how it's performing with the fence and everything. It's a pretty nice system. So you don't have to have a fence tester to test your fence unless you want to. But these I-Series Gallagher units, they can use the remote control that Gallagher sells. It's a fault finder, voltmeter, and remote control all in one. You can turn the Energizer on and off from this right here, this little power button right there. I've got it plugged in but not turned on yet. But then you've got some different settings in here that you can go through, and we'll kind of talk about that and what you can do with it. So first we're going to turn it on. So it's putting out 8,000 volts, it shows. Like I said, you can turn it off from this controller. See, it shuts off. And you can do the same thing with the remote control. So then you can turn it right back on. So right now it's not hooked up to any kind of fence right now, but if it was, this would have an amp number here, and this is kind of shows you how much draw is coming off the fence that's dragging the unit down. So typically, you know, you might have 15 amps, 10 amps, 30 amps, whatever the number is on there. The higher this number climbs, the more of a draw you have. But this thing shows, you know, 7,000, 6,000, 8,000 volts come out of it, and it shows like 30 amps. You're still getting 6, 7, 8,000 volts out of it. So let me get a load tester here, and we're going to stress test this unit, and I'll show you what this amps will do. I think I've got it. I've got one here somewhere. Give me just a second here to find it, and we'll get something show and tell here for you. Pause that. All right, what I've got here is a 150 ohm 20 watt resistor, and we're going to hook that across fence and ground. So to get to your terminals, you got to slide this orange thing off, which sometimes is easier said than done. This has been around a little while. This unit got hit by lightning, and there we go. It's a little stubborn. There's got a little persuasion. So this is your fence. This is your earth reference, which you don't have to use, but basically keeps tabs on your ground voltage. Which there's a setting in here that you can go through. There's like parameters, like warnings and alarms that you can set on this thing for different thresholds if you want. So if your voltage falls or goes above or below a certain number, to sound off an alarm. If the amps go above a certain threshold, you can sound off an alarm. So we're going to turn this on. This is also an adaptive control unit, they call it, which means it adapts its output to the fence conditions. So if it's a nice clean fence, not a whole lot of vegetation or shorts on it, you know, the number should stay up pretty high here. The amps will be, you know, 10, 15, 5, 30, you know, some kind of average amp number. And you can set the thresholds of that when you want the alarm to go on, but I'll go through that here in just a minute. So, well, now what we're going to do is we're going to take this load tester, that I call it, and we're going to go across. 150 ohms is a pretty heavy load. The closer you get to 0 ohms, which is a dead short, the harder it is on a unit. So it's 150 ohms. Most brands use 500 ohms, but we're going to do 150. So this is going to load it down pretty hard. So we're going to go to fence and ground. See how the number on the voltage fell down and it climbed back up. So I'm going to take the load off, and it'll stabilize here in a second. See how it changes that number? It adapts to the fence conditions. So if you watch it, it fell down to about 4 something kV and jumped up to about 7. So it adapted up. So we got a 150 ohm load. We're still getting about 7,000 volts out of it, but it's shooting up 44 amps. So that's a pretty decent load for it, amperage wise. If you dead short it, it's going to drag down pretty hard. But as you can see, these lights here, which may be hard to see, this will change on the fly with this number. So if it's a nice clean fence, you should get all the way up to the green, top green number, or green light. If it falls down, you know, it might be in the upper, you know, not quite to the top, but maybe down here in the middle of the green, yellow, or the red, depending on your load. So we're going to load it down again and watch those lights. See it adapt up. That very first pulse, it was down in the red and yellow area, and then it climbed up to the, no, it's not quite to the top green. The very top one's not lighting up. So this is their kind of fence performance gauge. Now what I want to do is I want to go through, we're going to go through some of the settings on here. This is your settings button. So if you're curious on how to set some of this up, we'll try to figure some of this out on our own because I don't have hooked to a fence, but we're going to, I can put that load on there if I need to. So I'll hit the settings button. So let me get it pulsing again. I want to see something. Okay, so this is this little symbol here. That's your fence output symbol. So right now it's flashing and it says 3 kV right there. And what that means is if your unit gets dragged down, it times out. If you don't put any buttons anytime soon, it goes back to clicking. So we'll just pause it for a second. The number showed 3 kV on here, and that little symbol down there was flashing, which corresponded with that 8 kV that was there. So that 3 kV is I think the preset from the factory setting of if that voltage on there falls below 3 kV or lower and stays there for a moment, it will sound off an alarm, which I can do that too. I can put a dead short across it and cause that number to fall down below 3, and it will sound off an alarm. So we'll do that here in a second, but you can change that setting by just hitting the plus or minus. So if you want that voltage alarm to go off if it goes below, say, 4.5. So let's crank this up to, let's go 7. Because if I can drag that voltage down there to 6.7, so if it falls below that number, it will sound off an alarm. So right now it's sitting at 8. We're going to put that load across there, and we're going to drag it down. It'll be just below 7. And you give it a few pulses, and it should sound off an alarm. As you can see, it sounds off an alarm. So, hey, I got below 7,000 volts. So then you know, okay, if you had it set, you shouldn't set it that high. That's really stupid to do. But if you set it to, say, 4 kV and the voltage falls below 4 and stays there, you've got, it's going to sound off an alarm. You know you're going to have problems. So, but as soon as you fix your problem and it goes over that number, give it a few pulses and it will stabilize and correct itself. See? Now the alarm's gone and it's ready to work like it's supposed to. So that's what that first one was. So we're going to put it back in standby for a second. We're going to go back to here. I'm going to change it back down to 3, which is what the guy had it set to, or what if he never checked it, changed it. That's what that was 4. Now we're going to scroll across, hit that button. Now this is your, I believe, let's just try, I think this is your output, how much you can lower the amount of shock it can deliver. So we're going to hit that button. Okay. So this is like if you want, say you're trying, I don't know why you would do this, but say you wanted to lower the output of your charger so it doesn't hit as hard. So say you're trying to, your animals are trained, but you don't want as much shock because you're worried about hurting something or whatever. You can go there and change those lights. So that's, oops. So that second scroll across one time, that when this is flashing, that's what that is. So most people keep that up here. Why, you know, if you're going to have all this power, might as well put all the power you can to it. So I don't know why you would do that, but if you want to make sure that that's all the way up, if it's not going any higher than that, check that first. So now it's going to adapt itself back up to about 8 kV. Let's go back into the settings. We're going to scroll across. There's that one. Now this is your ground volt. So that's when, if you were using this terminal right here, that would check or keep tabs on the ground volts. So most times 0 volts in the ground is perfect, but it's real hard to get that. 0.3 to 0.5 is about max you want to see out of a unit. But if you're using this ground terminal right here, this ground reference, this is what this is for. So if your ground voltage climbs up above that threshold, that alarm will go off. But most people don't use it, but it's there just in case. So now this is your amp number. So if your amps goes above, say, 20 amps, let's just say that's the number. And you can go over here and you can change this to, say it's, we'll go back to that 7 kV again. Now this area here, I wouldn't really mess with it right away. I would run at least one season, so you know what your parameters, what your fence is usually running at, because you don't want that amp number to be set too low, say at 10 amps, and it running at, say, 8 kV all the time. It's showing 10 amps, then the thing's going to go off all the time. So I would leave that number alone for the initial run of the unit, so that way you know what because everybody's system is going to be a little bit different. So now we're going to set that to that. That's that. All right, we're going to hit this. So right now, it will go off if the voltage or the amperage goes above 20 amps or the voltage falls below 7. And it should go off on either one of them because we're running below 7 and below and above. I want to check something real quick and wait for it to reset itself. And there it goes. So we're going to, actually I misspoke. We're going to bring this back down to 3. We'll leave that at 20. That was for that original test I was showing you. So we'll leave this at 3. We'll keep that at 20. So if your amperage drops or goes above 20 amps, is what this is set at the moment, it will sound off an amp alarm. So you see how we had that number set to 3 kV, which is well above 3 kV, but it's above our amperage number, which we had set at 20 amps. So you don't want high amps. The higher the amp number is, the worse your short is on the fence, the worse the problem is. So that's what that shows. What's nice is it doesn't sound off the alarm right away, because you never know if the wind's blowing around and a tree limb hits the fence and it's laying up against it for a moment. You know, say 2-3 pulses goes by, and then all of a sudden the wind blows the other direction, and now the limb's away from the fence. The alarm won't go off right away. You got to give it about 3 to 5 pulses before it actually sounds off the alarm. So this is a pretty slick setup. I really, really like these I-Series by Gallagher. These are really smart things. All of them come with this digital controller. You don't have to use it, but it comes with it. And it's a really, really nice piece of equipment to have. with it. You can also use the remote control, which they don't come with those, but you can buy them in kits that come with it online, or you can buy it separately. But it's a remote control, fault finder, and voltmeter all in one. So you can turn the fence off, turn the charger off, turn the fence off anywhere on the fence, find your problem, fix it, turn the fence back on, and see what happens. But it's a pretty slick thing. So real quick, we're gonna go through those settings again real quick. That first one is your fence output alarm. So if you want your alarm to go off when it goes below this, whatever number you set it at, that's what that's for. We're gonna go back to the left. We're gonna bring this back down to whatever he had it at. We're just gonna leave it there. I guess where it was at, I believe. Oops. That's your output voltage kind of thing, or output power. I would say not voltage, but output power. So if this number, you just raise it and lower it. You can't. Oh, actually, you can't go any below. So that's like having half power. So instead of having full power, half power terminals, you can just increase or decrease the power depending on this right here. So most people will leave it to green and be done with it. That's your fence voltage alarm, which corresponds with this, which you don't have to use, but if you want to, it's there. There's your amp alarm. So if for some reason it goes, whatever you set it at, I would say, we were sitting at 6 kV, 6.7 kV at 45 amps roughly, which 45 amps is a pretty big number, but you're still getting almost 7,000 volts out of it. So I wouldn't set this number too low. I would probably set it higher. But like I said, everybody's fence system is a little bit different. So when you're wanting to adjust these parameters on this thing, let your unit run for either a full season, leave it at the factory default settings, let it run for either a full season or for at least, for 2, 3, 4 months, just so you get used to whatever numbers are usually showing up on here. So if you're normally sitting at 7.1 kV at 35 amps, there's no reason to set your alarm for voltage to be, too low or too high. And no reason to set this to be, too high or too low. You need to set your parameters if you want to use those parameters, those alarm settings. Just make sure you set them to whatever is however your fence normally runs. Set the amps to go above that number. So if your amps, say you normally run at 30 amps, set it for 50 amps or something like that. So if it really climbs up kind of high, okay, I got a problem. But if your voltage is still putting out pretty good, so if this reads 50 amps and you're getting 6 kV, yeah, you've got a pretty good load on it, but you're still getting 6,000 volts out of this thing. So, maybe put your amperage higher, maybe put it at 70 amps, something like that. So, but that's a little bit of insight of how this thing works. These are really, really good units. This thing was hit by lightning. That's the only reason why it came in. I don't hardly ever get these Gallagher I series things in. These things are really well built. I don't think there's anything really out there that can hold a candle to how these things perform and how they're put together. These things, from a repair and reliability standpoint, they are top notch. These are probably the best units out there to look at. This is the smallest at this time currently in 2020. The smallest I series unit that they sell today is the 18 joule unit. So they do have adaptive control units, which is like this, but it didn't have all these bells and whistles. That would be the M1100 or M1500. So they're smaller units. They're just a box that clicks. They do have a row of lights on them, but they do the adaptive control with the number, like it falls down and climbs back up kind of thing. But you can't see that. You basically have to look at those lights. They don't have any numbers on them. They're not a digital readout unit like this one is. But yeah, so you can put this thing on the side of the building, drive by and see it's a nice bright lights on here. I mean, the glare in this thing is pretty bright on the camera. But yeah, if you walk by, you don't hear the thing beeping at you. You don't see this light turn red. You don't see any weird numbers on here. Just keep on driving by. You don't have to worry about your fence. Go about your day. If for some reason this light's turned red and one of these things is going off on here, you know, hey, I've got a problem, I need to go fix, I need to check out what's going on. You can turn it off from this, you know, temporarily, and then fix it. Or yeah, you temporarily can turn this off from here. Go out to find the problem, come back, turn it back on, or radio into a guy or a wife or whoever's out there. Hey, can you turn the charger back on? Push that little button there on the front of the digital controller. That's your on-off button. Or if you have the remote control, you can go out there to your fence, check your fence, start fault finding, you find your problem, turn it off. It will basically do this. You fix your problem, pull the broken insulator off, put a new insulator on, turn it back on from the fence, and then it should go back to work, and you know, you can recheck it and see if you have any other problems. So it's a very intuitive system. I mean, sometimes these little controller things can get kind of squirrely, especially if you get in there and start messing with stuff that you shouldn't have, or you didn't know what you're doing. But if you ever got one of these and you need help figuring out how to set one of these up, or you messed it up on accident and can't figure out how to get it back to square one, and just call us up. Go to our website, fencerfixer.com. Fencer and Fixer, both spelled with an F as in Frank. Give me a second. There are links in the description area down below. You can click on the website. But you go to our, we've got two websites, the cattlescalerepair.com and fencerfixer.com. But we work on all brands and ages of these electric fence boxes. We also work on the cattle scale and low bars, and also the Gallagher EID tag readers. We work on those as well. But we work on all brands and ages. We get free quotes and 18-month warranties, everything that we work on. Lightning damage is part of that warranty. But hopefully this is some real good benefit for you. If you know somebody that's got one of these units and they're having trouble, send it off here, tell them about us, and have them send it off here. We'll be happy to work on it. We work on all this stuff. Don't get very many of these I-Series Gallagher stuff in. We get a lot of Gallagher stuff in that's old, you know, 10, 15, 30-year-old units, but we don't get a lot of new ones and everything. But these are really well-built units. So if you're looking at a new unit and you want a lot of power and you like some of the features that this thing does, this would be a really good one. You're going to pay a premium for it, but man, it is top notch. You're not buying a piece of junk, piece of crap unit. You're buying a good piece of equipment. You know, these are really well-built units. But well, anyways, that's all I have for this video on this stuff. So until next time, we will see you guys later on.